Hey, friends, welcome back to the Purpose Beyond Motherhood podcast. It's Holly and Nicole. Well, I'm Nicole, but Holly's here.
Hello.
And we're just so glad you are tuning in to listen again. We're so grateful for you. So if you are a repeat listener, you are our people. Thank you just for supporting just what the Lord is doing and supporting 1212 Ministries. But if this is your first time listening to the podcast, we welcome you. Please just go ahead and hit subscribe and share this with a friend. We want just women to know that they are seen, loved, understood, and not forgotten.
Yes. Amen to all of that.
Yeah. So we have a really wonderful, wonderful guest for you guys. Her name is Brandie Thomas. Hi, Brandie.
Hey, ladies. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I was like, it is our pleasure because Brandie and we just got, I don't even know how we got connected, but again, I am here for the divine appointments. And so thank you, Lord, for your grace and your goodness and all of the things. And so Brandie just has a really, I think a great, great story of just hope and still just no matter what, still looking to the Father. And we know that all of our stories look different, that, they're different, but we're still kind of walking that same journey. And so Brandie, I just want to just jump in. So tell us a little bit about you, and then let's go into your story.
Yes.
Yeah. So my quick bio that I love to say is I'm a boy mama. My son's actually turning 5 on Sunday as of this recording. And I have chickens. We had 6. I used to be a 6 chicken mama, but now I'm a 5 chicken. We lost one, unfortunately, this fall. But homesteader, my husband and I, we fixed up a 1969 little house and farmhouse, and so we're on our homesteading journey. I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur, author, also do podcasting, and I just really love helping women partner with God and live life, business, ministry, whatever they're doing from a place of rest, entering into his rest and then operating from that place. And I know with my infertility adoption story that we're going to get into, there's a lot of that I learned a lot of that, how to do that in that journey.
Wow. The homesteader, I'm like, I want to come and live where you live because so often, yes, the whole premise of rest and basing that all on rest. Tell me, well, maybe you want to start with other things first, but I'm like, I would love to come back to that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, in my journey, I've learned that when we come to rest in God and not do things in our own strength and wisdom, then the journey is not that it's simple or easy, but there's peace in it. And it's just, I don't know, there's a Holy Spirit flow, a divine flow. Even though things aren't, circumstances may not look the way you want them to, and things aren't going on your timeline, but there's just this peace that surpasses understanding. And it may look crazy what you're doing to the world, but in your heart, there's just deep rest. And it comes from being in your identity, standing in your divine identity and authority is what I found. And I had to learn what that was. And I've come to a place now where we adopted our son, Elijah. And on this journey of 8+ years of trying to get pregnant and doing all the things to do that and going through the adoption journey. And I had to learn who God was so that I can learn who I was and trust that what he said about me was true. And so there's a lot of relationship building and a lot of tearing down old belief systems and pruning and then rebuilding up. So yeah, it's been a journey. I keep saying journey, but that's the best word for it.
We get that. We get that.
Yeah.
Well, so how did your journey begin then?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm trying to decide how far back. So when I was 20, I feel like this is important. When I was 20, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. At 23, I had my entire colon removed and actually have an ileostomy bag. The whole point of me having that surgery, though, at that young age was like, I know I want to be a mother and that is my calling, and I'm going to sacrifice this portion of my body because I want to be healthy. I want to be able to lift my children. I want to be present with them. I want to have energy. I want to heal. And the treatments weren't working. And so surgery was like the thing. And that actually brought so much healing. I've been in remission for over 10 years with my Crohn's disease.
Praise God.
Little did I know at that time that there, like, medications I'd been on and just diets and stuff, like there was just so much that contributed, I think, to my fertility journey, part of that. But then God just used these last 8 years, like it or not, to just restore me, redeem me, heal me.
Yes.
Just uproot past trauma and hurt and lies and beliefs. And so I didn't know I was not going to I never expected I would be on this fertility journey. And I don't think anybody ever does, right? You don't, when you go into family planning, you're like, my mom had 4 babies, like back to back. Like my siblings and I were like a year and a half apart. So I never expected to have any issues with fertility. And I was only on birth control for maybe like the first 4 years of our marriage. And I was getting my master's, I was in like 3 weddings. So we just like wanted to, jobs, all the things. So it was around 27, I think, is when we actually started. And I went into it like, I'm not going to stress about it. It's going to be on God timing. Like I already have been told all of those things that I feel like young women get told, like, don't stress, just have fun, do all the things. And so I've not necessarily ever been stressed about the fertility journey, even to this day. Like we've never not tried like to get pregnant over these past 8 years. But it was like after that first year and my friend's like, hey, you haven't like even gotten pregnant. Like maybe you should start checking into things. And that started me on, really trying to find the right practitioner who could get to the root. And it took a lot of time to get to the right person to dig into like my actual health needs and not just put a band-aid on me or put me through the system, put a pill on it. And so that was a journey in itself because you're being poked and prodded and like treated like a science experiment. And, that in itself is like a whole emotional journey.
Yes.
And
while still
Brandie, I
keeping
know
hope.
I would just want to point out, especially to our listeners, is how well you advocated for yourself.
Yeah.
In finding the right practitioner and doctor. I think when we have appointments and things like that, it's just like whatever the doctor says, we're like, okay, because they're the doctor, so for you to, really find the right person and do the work there, it is really, really amazing. And so keep going. But I just wanted our listeners to really, to hear that and to be encouraged to advocate for what they're looking for.
That is so true. And I would say the deeper into my journey, the more quote unquote crunchy I've become in my practitioner choice. I mean, there's wild stuff that is not in your normal Western medicine that I have tried. Like I've literally mailed my hair to this like naturopath doctor in Montana so she could scan. And like she's Dr. Rachel Borntrager is who I work with her. And then I work with a Napro and Creighton practice.
Yes, we're familiar.
With that. Okay. So that is kind of how I've gotten to where I am today with finding. So for me, what I found out is like, can we talk about like, say the word mucus on here? Like
it's totally, yes,
like,
it's welcome in this place. Yes.
Yeah. So for me, what I found out was like I have I'm not producing cervical mucus. Like my cycle, for me, what was hard is like my cycle's clockwork. My blood work's fine. Like there have been some progesterone and estrogen issues in the journey, but that is also like if you're not getting those tests done at the right time, like those could be skewed results. And so finding a person that actually knows when to like first track your cycle and figure out what is going on with your cycle and then know when to start getting those blood draws and stuff done. So, but yeah, it's been each step I go, it's like, okay, diet, supplements? What am I lacking? What emotional healing? I mean, if you want to go to breaking off generational curses, we can go down that route as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I'm just like cleaning out all the things. Like, okay, God, show me where I need work done. And this past year, I've specifically been working through grief trauma and like grief counseling, and just like have experienced some deliverance work. And so, continuing to trust God. And for me, I feel like what's the hardest part is like there's still that desire, and I still feel like there's this promise for me to carry my own child. And I don't, and so it's like, God, can we just quit this already? Like there's definitely conversations. I'm like, can we just close this chapter? Like if we are only ever called to adopt, and if Elijah's our only child, like what a blessing. And I'm so grateful for that. And so there's like for me, there's this bittersweetness to it of like, there's still this like there's this hope, and I'm still doing the good work, fighting the good fight for that promise that I feel like God has called me to. But every year it's just like, okay, I've got to renew my soul armor back up. God, is this still where you're calling me to? Because I'm okay if you're ready to say no. Like, yeah, I'll cry about it, but I would almost rather just it being like a hard no so I could move on with my life. And that's kind of that's the tension I'm currently at as a 37-year-old woman, who's feels like this year something's going to happen family-wise. And so I've started back onto fertility journey stuff, and we're open to adoption. We're obviously open to biological, and that would be my heart's desire. A plot twist, a friend wants to donate 2 of her embryos that she can't use. That was never even on my radar, so that's like a whole mess of emotions.
That's so
and
sweet. I'm like trying not to cry while you just told
I
me
know,
that.
right?
Wow.
Same.
Oh my god. Okay.
It's been an emotional day for me, so if I cry, like you'll be
Yes.
we'll
Oh
be
my goodness. Okay, while you were talking, I feel like you have such a healthy grasp on surrender. And
Yes.
I feel like that is such a
That's good, Holly.
like, how could you, are there little things you've done or steps you've taken beside the fact that you were kind of cornered into surrendering this, but you've also chosen to do that. So how did you get that posture of surrender in your own life?
So I love that you said posture to surrender, because that's what I do with a lot of my coaching clients is I'm like, you need to come into a posture of surrender to receive. When you're in that posture of surrender, your hands are open. You're also posturing yourself to receive the next or the more that God has for you. And I had to learn that. And I share this in the book, the Restore My Soul book chapter, about my season of dark. I call it my dark season because when I remember, it's just black. There's just blackness, and it's really just Jesus and I, like, fighting. Like, Jesus is standing there with his arms open, and I'm, like, punching him and kicking him and cursing him and, like, not being the good Christian girl that I was raised to be. And I think finally getting to a place in my relationship where I could just be that raw and honest and just lay everything down it's one of my most favorite moments in my relationship with Jesus, but it's like it is a very dark space in my relationship as well. But I love it because it's so sweet, and it really just reminds me like Jesus is close to the brokenhearted, and he is with you in the valley. And and I love Psalms 23 when he's like, even though you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will be with you. My rod and my staff will comfort you. And I just felt like he was standing there just waiting to hug me, but he wanted me to be in a place to receive that hug. And like, he's a gentleman, and he's not going to force himself on you. And so he was just there with me in the moment. And I'm just like letting him have it. And just like, it's not supposed to be this way. And at that point, we were actually in our adoption journey, and we were in the waiting, like we were home study approved, and we were waiting to match with our birth mother. But there was so much grief and pain and frustration of like, who are you, God? Because if this is who you are, I don't know that I want to be in a relationship with you. Like, you created me to bear fruit and multiply. Why is this one thing you've called me to do? Why can't I do it? And why do these other people, why do I have to take somebody else's baby who wants their child, but circumstantially she can't, be its mother, like provide for this child because I can't have one. Like, it didn't make sense, and it was so messed up. And there is beauty in adoption, and our adoption story is so divinely orchestrated and beautiful. But there was just that, like, I had to get to that place in my relationship where I could have that raw and real and just let it out and let it go so that God could start healing me, and he could also create space for me to love this child he was going to bring into my life. And that, I feel like that moment of true surrender, and I went into that year in 2019 of, that was my, like, surrender was my word for that year, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to control anything about the adoption process other than like the paperwork, and like going to the appointments with the social workers and stuff. But I couldn't control the timing. I couldn't control who this birth mother is. I couldn't control we wanted an open adoption, but how healthy was this relationship going to be? And here's the timeline, Holly and Nicole, it's wild. So we heard God back in 2018. I was well, actually 4 years before that. I was at a women's conference, and Lisa Turkhurst was one of her, or no, it was Lisa Bibier was our speaker. And I was like worshiping, and I just felt and heard the audible voice of God just be like, you're going to adopt. And I was just like bawling, and I'm like, I don't even, like, our niece is adopted, so I had like some experience with it. And so I went home and told my husband, I was like, I think, like, what do you think about adoption? Because I feel like that's on our path. And my husband at the point was like, yes, but let's wait. Let's like try ourselves. And that's like a plan B, like, we want to have our own children, and then we'll also adopt. That was like his plan. And I was just like, okay, that matches with me. I would love to have my own children first. Like that, sure. So 4 years went by, and I'm driving to like a business meeting, and I'm listening to a book on Audible, and the woman is sharing her story of adoption. And I hear that voice again say, like, you're going to adopt. And I said, God, if this is you, I'm not having the conversation with my husband again. You tell him to tell me. And so that was in August. And then December of 2018, we're at a Mexican restaurant. I share this part in the story too, in my chapter. We're at a Mexican restaurant. Like, I'm living my best life, chowing down on nachos and tacos. And he's like, hey, since you're not pregnant, and he was like, remember the conversation that we had? I'm like, whatever. I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm going to eat my chips and salsa. Like, go on. He's like, since you're not pregnant at the end of the year, let's start the adoption process, or start like looking into it, after the new year, after the holidays. And I just felt like the Holy Spirit, like, whoosh, like, there you go, come over me, like,
yes.
Okay, God, I hear you. Let's do this. We had just moved to a new city, and we had started looking at churches. And our old church had like adoption support for families. It was kind of a mega church for the town we were in. But we moved. So I'm from Indiana, and we moved up to like the Indianapolis, like northern Indianapolis suburbs area. And we went to this new church, and I picked out a church, and I posted on Facebook. I'm like, I think we found our church. And my neighbor is like, you need to go to this other church. You'll really like the pastor. I'm like, dude, I just told you I found my church. Like, but because it's you, I will go try this new church. And I'm actually in the church now, working here this morning while my son's in the pre-K. And yeah, like, it was just crazy. The pastor at the time, there's two pastors at the time, one of them's still here, and he like would not let us leave without saying hi. And I was like, okay, that was really nice. Like, this guy actually saw us, and like wanted to just let us know that he saw us, and he wanted to welcome us to the community. And then I was able to meet the next pastor, and I was like, I've got some questions before I plant roots here. I'm like a pretty loyal person. Like once I commit to something, I wanted to build roots, and I wanted to find a church that I could implant myself into. And I asked about the adoption like, do you guys have any adoption support? 'Cause this is something my family is looking into. And he's just like, no, it's a smaller church, but we have a family who's adopted 8 kids, and they have a podcast and a book. Let me send you their podcast
Oh my
episode.
gosh.
Very first episode was them interviewing the owner and founder of the Adoption Support Center here in Indianapolis. Loved her
Wow.
story. Like, I don't think I listened to any of the other episodes, to be maybe 1 or 2, but like that, I was like, okay, here's the agency we're supposed to go to. We went there, had like their first intro session, and we found out just to apply was going to be $350. And we're like, I don't know financially how this is going to go, but God's like, go on Facebook and just share your journey. And people were like, we want to donate. I never thought people would donate to me. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing people did to raise money for adoption. And people were like, we want to help you out. Like, and so I set up a PayPal, and we had like $20 more than we needed for that first application to just get going. And then along the way, God just provided financially for us in different ways. And so we were homesteading. So that was like March-ish, and then we were homesteading approved in July, and we matched with our birth mom October 31st. So like less than a year. Had Elijah January 26th of 2020. So like when God said move, like he moves. But that dark period was in between like July. Really, it was like September and October, where I just like spent a lot of nights in the dark at my bathtub, which is probably why I remember it being a dark season. But I was just like, God, I just need to soak in you. And my husband worked night shifts, so I was alone a lot in the evenings too. And so I just like worked out a lot with him. But our birth mother, we matched with her through my husband's aunt, who happened to be her high school teacher. So she was, and we were doing kind of a nationwide search, but she lives like 2.5 hours away from us. Beautiful 16-year-old. She was 16 when we met her. We know both of, we were able to meet Elijah's biological parents, both grandfathers on each side. And we actually just recently met his biological great grandmother. So Paige's grandmother. So we have a beautiful open adoption with Elijah's birth mom, and we see her once a quarter at least. Text her every Sunday, pictures and videos. She's actually expecting again, so we're gonna go up and meet Elijah's half sibling with her. It's a different partner, but he's really awesome. I just have seen God restore her story too, and how God brought us into her. And honestly, I've kind of adopted her a little bit. I know we're not that far off in age, but like my heart just breaks. Her story is so powerful and beautiful, and she is one of the most beautiful examples of sacrifice and unconditional love, and just how Jesus sacrificed himself so that we could have a better life and we could go to heaven and have the good things in life. She sacrificed that life with her son so that he could have the life that she couldn't give him. And just the wisdom, I have so much respect for her, the wisdom that she had at such a young age, and the willingness to do that with us. And like, it was messy at times and emotional, but we've had so many beautiful conversations. And I actually gave her a copy of my book, and that turned into, she read it, and that was just a beautiful conversation that came after her reading my story. And I opened the book. We can pause here, but I do want to talk about like taking like the hospital experience, but I can pause here for a minute if you guys have any.
Well, yeah, because there were so many things, I think, just that you mentioned, especially in your dark season. Just because, you said when you were fighting and wrestling, with the Lord, that you were like, oh, I'm not being the good Christian girl, and I think that we, women can carry that often and think like, oh, I can't be my full self with the Lord. and I can't be upset or I can't show him those things. And I think your story is just like a perfect example to say, hey, yes, we can. The Lord can take it. Like he wants the true, real of us. Like he wants our heart. So if our heart is a little hardened, like he still loves and cares for us. And so I'm so glad that you shared that.
Yeah, that was the journey of me starting my divine identity experience, because up until that point, a lot of my identity was based on worth. Like my worth was based on my actions and like being the good person, or like not sinning and trying to do all the things. Like there was a lot of perfectionism, a lot of people pleasing, a lot of behavior modification, like it was how I was raised. And so oh my gosh, there's like so many things I could go into, but like I was raised by the tree of the knowledge of good and evil versus the tree of life, as many of us are. And that's like a whole parenting episode, but I'm trying to parent my son from the tree of life.
That's good.
Not from like where the goal is you have a divine identity in Christ. And my goal as a parent is to help you come into alignment with that, not make you a good or a good boy, you know? So that was a lot of my, because of like that was how I was raised with my like earthly parents. That was my perception of God, is like he's not gonna love me if I mess up, and I've clearly broken. I did something wrong, and I'm being punished. That was my experience. That was my like lens. And so it was when I finally got to that point where I was just like letting him have it, that he could start to then be like, let me show you who I am so then I can show you who you are in me.
It's good.
And it's been such a beautiful journey of a messy journey, but like undoing a lot of those belief systems and uprooting those like weeds so that he could plant into me that tree of life and like his grace and his peace and his rest, and like operate from that. Like everything I do can flow from that source, that divine identity and authority, not this false one.
Yes, so true.
Wow.
And Brandie, you've mentioned your book a couple of times, and so I definitely want our listeners to learn more about it. Can you just, share a bit, and then too, just where we can find it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
So I was blessed to be a part of an anthology called Restore My Soul, and it's a multiple authors who have just stories of hope and redemption. And so mine is about my fertility and adoption journey, and how I like held both the duality of experience, pure joy and pure grief in the exact same moment, and holding that throughout that journey of the adoption, my adoption story. And it's available on Amazon. You can get it on Kindle. It's called Restore My Soul. I didn't bring it with me this morning, unfortunately, but it's Restore My Soul, like I'm trying to remember what the tagline is, but it's like a series of stories of restoration and redemption, I think. So it's awesome. My mom's chapter is also in there too, so it's kind of cool to be able to do a book with my mom.
Nice.
Sweet.
So yeah, thanks for letting me put that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and so where can our listeners just, find you online? Are you on socials, your website? You talked about podcasting.
Yeah. So at Kingdom Mothers on Instagram is probably the best. On TikTok, I'm Kingdom Mothers Unite, I think is what it had to be. But brandiethomas.com/KM podcast is where you can just get all my links to my YouTube channel, my Facebook, all the different socials that I have, and connect with me there.
I love it. You guys, we will put all of those things in the show notes. And Brandie, we just have to have you back.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
On the show. Yeah, we have to have you back, because there's just so much still, to your story that we absolutely want our listeners to hear and to learn and to be encouraged. And so we're going to have you back. So you guys, there's going to be a part 2, because this is just like too good to rush.
Stay tuned. For sure.
Exactly. But Brandie, thank you so much for joining us today. We are absolutely cheering you on. Thank you for what you're doing for the kingdom and Kingdom Mothers. Yes. I love that.
Yes.
Love it so much.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, friends, we'll see you next week.
Okay.